So, all of the major feature reveals for FM24 have now been released. We know what the main differences will be between the last game, FM23, and the new game that's coming out. So we're going to try and answer the question today, is FM24 worth it? We'll give you our opinion, but of course we want to hear from you guys as well. So let us know in the comments if you'll be buying FM24. Now usually it's often the negative comments that people tend to comment saying they're not buying the game. The people that are don't seem to mention that they're going to, but we want to hear from both sides. So if you have a positive or negative opinion, let us know down below. But we'll be analysing everything as a whole here because we have actually broken down in previous videos all of the individual feature reveals in detail, but we haven't actually spoke about the question that we get asked a lot in the comments: is the new game worth it? Some caveats before we tell you if the game is worth it or not. Firstly, it's only my opinion. You guys can make your own opinion up. I'm just trying to give you what I think about it here. And on top of that, we're talking about the full-fat PC version of FM here. We're not talking about FM Mobile or what you might see on Console Edition. Whilst everything will likely apply to all of those as well, we are mainly focusing on the full-fat version of FM here. But like I say, most of the same reasons will apply for buying the new game. And this is presuming that all of you have played FM23 as well. I mean, if you're on FM21 still, it probably is worth the upgrade, but if you're on last year's game, is it worth upgrading? But let's break down everything we know so far. Firstly, we are getting the J-League added to FM24. Is that a huge selling point on its own merit? No, not necessarily, but if you're interested in playing it, it's a cool addition. On top of that, we now know for the first time ever you can transfer your saves across Football Manager games, or at least from 23 to 24, so that kind of rules out the argument of I'm still playing a save on FM23 that I really love, I don't want to get FM24 because I'll have to stop that save. No, you can now transfer that over and still get access to the majority of the new features that have been added to the game, so that kind of rules out that argument. But then we get in to the main feature reveals. Now some of these I think are massive, like game changing to be honest, and some of them maybe not so much. Are they going to sell a game on an individual basis? We'll talk about that now, but firstly, the first reveal, of course, was the smarter transfers, squad building and finance, which to me, this was one of my favourite reveals out of a lot. They've made more realistic AI manager AI in terms of the decisions other clubs will make, so transfers will seem a lot more realistic, the fees you get, the battles that you have to sign players, teams stock loading on certain players when they don't necessarily need that player in a position is less likely to happen. There's just generally improved logic all around, and for someone that really did get annoyed sometimes at the transfer logic in the game, this is huge news. They also released something that gives me a whole new want to play the next Football Manager, and that was about variations to player development. You're now going to get late developers in game, players that bloom later on in their career. This is going to add so much variation onto the players you sign. It's no longer just going to be you sign a 16-year-old Wonderkid with potential, they get good by 21 and you've got a mega team. No, you're going to get some players that have potential but don't develop, and then later in their career they will, and I think this is going to add so much more depth to the game. A slight change like that, even though some might see it as a little change, I really don't think it is. I think that's going to really change the way that you play your Football Manager saves. It's going to add so much more variation to your saves and make it so much more fun. There's also better development of younger players. We've seen it before where there's a Wonderkid, let's say at Bayern Munich, right, but the Bayern Munich manager never uses him. They stunt the player's development and they never grow. Now that's much less likely to happen, with managers prioritising getting these younger players into the team when they can, using them off the bench and developing them. So we should see more development around the world, and that'll mean more players and again more variation in your save, more players to sign, because these Wonderkids will be developing across the world instead of just sitting there and stagnating. It tended to be if you had a Wonderkid without great attributes straight away, they'd never develop because they'd never get the chance to play unless you signed them in your saves. They've also changed the way transfers work in the sense of you can exceed your transfer budgets, you then are going to have to try and make that money back. So if you don't have 20 million but you think you're going to make 20 million from selling a player and you really need to sign someone quickly, you can spend that 20 million if you don't have it in your budget. Just know that if you do, you're going to have to make that money back, and if you don't, the board are going to take control. Again, these are much better mechanics to the game. It's going to make things much more fun, and there's going to be so much more maneuverability in the transfer market, which I and many other people will say is their favourite part of the game. Some people it's tactics, some people it's, you know, managing and developing young players. For me, transfers, rebuilding sides, I absolutely love doing. Don't worry, we're not going to go into so much detail about every single reveal, but this feature reveal for me just blew me away, and now so many additional things. These things do make me think the next game is worth buying, and this one is a huge one too. The TV deals are now going to be dynamic instead of fixed. So let's say you're developing a team in, say, the Serbian divisions, and over time that Serbian team becomes one of the best in the world. Before, the only real way you'd make money is from the Champions League, and the TV deals would always remain the same. But now the better your team is, the more interest there'll be for people in having those games on TV, which will increase the bids of the TV revenue, and over time it can really help you in building up a league. So it's going to allow for so much more fun saves, and as mentioned, their most intelligent transfer market yet. I love that. Now, intermediaries, I'm not going to go into everything about that, but basically there's going to be assistance now in selling your players. If you can't move someone on, some deadwood, you're allowed to ship them off to these intermediaries, basically, which will try and do the job of selling the player for you, and they'll take a certain cut of a transfer. I think this is great. The amount of times we get stuck with deadwood and transfers don't make sense, these two updates combined are really going to help with that. Individual player targets and interaction logic, this is kind of like something that you'd want in the game anyway. No one's necessarily going to buy a whole new game for this, but basically they've added new interaction logic, I think 2,000 extra responses or something now, and 3 levels of variation to every single response that they could possibly have as a player when you tell them something, that now they're less likely to get super enraged. Instead, they might get a little bit annoyed, and instead of a player being positively happy, they might just be slightly happy, and it's just a little adjustment there to stop things feeling unrealistic, which sometimes they did. Then you get on to 2 huge updates, one being the set piece refreshes and the introduction of set piece coaches. Now, I think this is fantastic. If you haven't heard about it, read up on it. Is it worth buying a whole new game, though, for the ability to set up your set pieces? No, I don't think so. I think it's a nice fix that's really going to help players who do play, but I wouldn't say it's a unique selling point. What might be, though, was those first things they spoke about, the transfers changing. For me, someone who loves the transfer market, this is hugely important. The player development, the late growth, and the fluctuating TV deals is going to make for so many more fun saves, and it's going to keep you engaged in the game so much longer than, say, FM23, FM22, and FM21 did. It'll keep the game a lot more realistic if all works to plan, and that, for me, is something that I think will only enhance your FM experience and makes it worth buying. Then you've got the truer football motion. Basically, the match engine has been improved, as it is every year in theory. They've added some great things about positional play, so in theory now you can kind of play like Pep Guardiola, where John Stones will come from defence, move into midfield, wide players will tuck in, wide players might even move into the central midfield positions alongside, say, Rodri in Man City's case. So yeah, some great introductions there. I'm not going to go into every single detail like we did before. There's a whole video breaking down the first look of the match engine. But whilst these are all great, I only think a few of them are like unique selling points. That being said, though, I personally think there's enough here to make me think that it's definitely worth getting the next game. Now, again, you guys might agree or disagree. There's also the argument that FM25 is coming soon, and Sports Interactive, they've been very clear and fair, to be honest, letting us know that FM25 is going to be a much bigger jump moving on to a whole new engine, the Unity engine. It's basically going to be like a rebirth of Football Manager. It's likely going to look completely different. So some people are saying, should you wait for FM25? I would say that reasoning probably isn't good enough for me. As much as you could use a transfer update to have new and updated teams, you are going to get that benefit when you start a new save on FM24 of having all the players in the right places and all the information up to date. But also, this is the last Football Manager as we know it, and they've said that themselves. Like I say, Sports Interactive have been very open and honest, saying that FM25 is going to be a bigger jump in improvement. You'll probably see women's football too, and that might be at detriment to their own sales. It might be that some people see that and then don't get FM24, but I think everything they've told us so far, I think for me, this is a bigger upgrade than 23. I think it's a bigger upgrade than what 22 was as well. These are the best changes I've seen in a long time in Football Manager. I'm very happy to have them here, and then that's only getting me more excited for 25. But the fact that this might be the last Football Manager that we know it, I feel like it's definitely worth the purchase, and I feel like you guys are going to have so much great fun on it too. Now, I'm not working for Sports Interactive. I'm not trying to sell their game for them, but yes, I do definitely think it is worth getting FM24, in my opinion. On that note, though, if you are going to order Football Manager 24, please check out the description, because there's a link where you can buy it through an FMSCOUT code, and you'll still get everything like the beta access, but you'll save a little bit of money and help support us at FMSCOUT, so thank you to anyone who does that. But yes, all of these new changes to FM24 for me make it worth getting. Add on top of that the usual every year, the transfer update, new Wonderkids, Lamine Yamal being in the game, a whole new host of players to learn about. I think it's worth getting. You can transfer your save over as well, and FM23 for me wasn't the best update in the game series that they've ever done, whereas 24 I think is going to be a huge upgrade. So if you're someone who usually upgrades your Football Manager copy, this seems like as good a year as ever, if not the best year ever, to actually upgrade. If you're someone that buys Football Manager every 2 or 3 years, might be a good time to get in on it, because this might be the last version of Football Manager as we know it. The majority of these changes you should see influenced on the mobile version and also your PlayStation or Xbox version, the console version basically. Whether the positional play and stuff in the in-game engine will work as well, I'm not sure. I don't play any of those versions of FM, but for the full fat FM, I'm definitely very excited. I did think, like some others, that they were going to not really announce much for this Football Manager and only announce stuff for 25, but I've been, I won't say blown away by what they've announced, but it's everything you'd want to see. I feel like some people expect unrealistic things from Football Manager. Yes, we are getting a new engine next year, but there's some things like stadium builders and things like that where I just think, It's not really in the football manager's job. Yes, it could be fun to do, but it's not really your job as a manager to enhance a stadium and make a stand yellow instead of green, you know? Some people might disagree with that, but yes, I think everything they've added this year seems very cool. It's a bit more of a talky video, this one, I do understand that, but a lot of people are going to ask us a question on the channel, and they already have in the comments, is it worth buying FM24? This is my opinion. Let me know what you think. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.